Hey guys, this is Benny Ricciardi here with rotocurve.com, and I'm here to bring you our Benny's Bat section for this morning, July 25th, Saturday. First guy I want to talk about today is Chris Russin of Colorado. He's going up against Cincinnati. Has a 295 batting average allowed to right-handed bats so far this year with a whip of 1.57. Todd Frazier has a 425 WOBA and a 407 ISO score against against left-handed pitching. You got a guy like Marlon Byrd with a 391 WOBA and a 267 ISO against left-handers. Even Joey Votto, who's in the same handed matchup, is 373 and 137 today. Jay Bruce rounds it out, the last guy, another lefty in the lefty-on-lefty matchup. He's got a 370 WOBA with a 217 ISO score. So all four of those guys for Cincinnati are going to be in play. Obviously, in Colorado, stacking up Cincinnati is going to be a popular option today. But looking at the numbers, it's definitely something you should consider. Frazier's 425 WOBA is one of the highest on the day, and his 407 ISO score is easily the highest on the day. So this is one of the best matchups that you're going to find as far as any position player goes. I know his price today is extremely high around the industry. I think he's almost $6,000 over on DraftKings today, so he's not going to be easy to fit in your lineup. But based on paper, he is one of the best matchups you're going to find at any position. Next guy we can talk about is Scott Feldman. Feldman has allowed a 300 batting average to both right-handed and left-handed batters so far this year. Basically, anybody on Kansas City is going to be in play, but there are a few guys who do stick out. I like the left-handed bats the most. With Alex Gordon still being banged up, that basically leaves you guys like Mike Moustakas, who has a 383 WOBA and a 171 ISO score, and a guy like Eric Hosmer, who has a 382 WOBA with a 171 ISO score. So those are the two guys who are probably the most in play on that Kansas City team. Let's see. Next guy we can talk about is David Phelps. Phelps is pitching for Miami against San Diego. Right-handed bats actually do better than him. He's one of those reverse split kind of guys. The problem is there aren't a lot of guys who really have decent numbers against right-handed bats on that San Diego team. The best one is probably Justin Upton with a 355 WOBA and a 221 ISO score. He does have double-digit home runs against right-handers, but honestly, outside of him, there's not much on that team that really scares me. It's a bad ballpark, it's a bad hitting team, and it's something that I would just stay away from when I'm looking at my bats. Next game we can look at is Danny Duffy going up against Houston. Duffy has struggled a little bit with right-handed bats. He's allowed them to hit 270 this year against him with 7 home runs and 55 innings of work. You got a couple guys on that Houston team that makes sense to use. You can roll out shortstop Carlos Correa. He has a 421 WOBA and a 304 ISO score. So that's one of the better WOBA ISO combinations you're going to find on a day. Puts him in a good position to pick up a couple hits, and he definitely has some power upside. You can look at a guy like Jose Altuve. Altuve has a 390 WOBA. Remember, this is a guy that hit 400 last year against left-handed pitching. This year, he's only at about 340, and I say that as only because for him it's low, but a 340 batting average against any handedness of pitcher is something that you want to be able to target against on a daily basis. You can also look at lately when they've been going up against left-handed pitching, you've been finding Marwin Gonzalez batting in the 2-hole. So he's sandwiched in between Altuve and Correa, and he's got a 366 WOBA with a 184 ISO. Probably one of the more, underutilized shortstop options that you can find. He's listed as a shortstop or a third baseman in a lot of different spots. If you can get him at the shortstop position wherever you're playing, I think he might be a decent option. The problem with Correa is almost $5,000 on DraftKings today. He's in the high 4s over on FanDuel. He's, getting up to the $5,000 mark on Fantasy Aces. He's no longer a cheap option that you can plug into your lineups. He's somebody that you really got to pay up for. So if you don't have the money to pay up at shortstop, or you're somebody who doesn't like paying up at shortstop, you might want to try to find a different way to get there today. Let's see. We got Zach Lee is the pitcher that's going for the Dodgers against the Mets. In the minor leagues, he really struggled against left-handed bats. I wouldn't say really struggled, but he gave up about a 275 batting average to left-handers. The one guy who really stands out to me is Curtis Granderson. He's got a 376 WOBA with a 199 ISO score. So if I was going to roll any of the Mets out there, he would be the guy. Daniel Murphy is back, but he's still kind of getting back under, getting his legs under him since he came back from getting hurt. Lucas Duda feels like he can't hit the ball at all. There's really not a lot of left-handed bats on the Mets that are hitting well right now that I would be willing to roll out there. To be honest, there's not a lot of hitters, period, on the Mets that I would be willing to roll out there. But if I'm going to use anybody, it's probably going to be Granderson. Let's see. We got CC Sabathia going up against Minnesota. Now, this is an interesting game. The right-handed bats are all going to be in play against Sabathia today. He has a .330 average to right-handers, given up 18 home runs in 79 innings pitched already. So he's given up a home run about every 5 innings. And again, he's got a .330 batting average right-handed bats have against him this year. The one guy who really, really stands out on the numbers is Brian Dozier. He's got a .363 WOBA with a .231 ISO score. He's got power. He's going to be able to get a couple hits, and he should be on top of that order. One guy who I don't like was a guy who I mentioned yesterday, and that was Miguel Sano. He's actually been hitting right-handers a lot better than left-handers. So far, he's struggled against left-handers. He should profile to be a guy who does well against CC Sabathia, but I'm taking a back seat and hopping off the bandwagon on him today because I have seen some bad at-bats against left-handed pitching so far, and until I see that he can hit lefties, I'm probably going to be sitting on the sidelines with this guy whenever they face a southpaw. Let's see. The next guy we could talk about is Rubby De La Rosa. Rubby De La Rosa has given up a .310 batting average to left-handed bats with 16 home runs in 54 innings. So if you have some good left-handed power hitters, this is definitely a spot to roll them out there in. Arizona's a good hitter's park, so a lot of these Milwaukee lefties are going to be in play. The two guys who really stand out whenever they face right-handed pitching is Adam Lind. He's got a .400 WOBA, .248 ISO number. He's leading the team in home runs against right-handed pitching. So he's probably going to be the guy that I put in the top of my order. He's a little bit expensive, but his price has actually come down a bit. I think he's like $4,500 on DraftKings, which makes him 5th or 6th highest first baseman on the day. But he's definitely somebody in a good spot. Definitely has a good chance for a home run, multiple hit upside. Definitely somebody I would roll out there. The next guy to look at is Gerardo Parra, .372 WOBA, .194 ISO. He's been leading off from Milwaukee. He's cooled off from the streak of absolutely on fire games he had right before the All-Star game, but he's still playing very well. His price still isn't too overly expensive on any of the sites that you're playing on. And again, leading off on top of that order with some of the big bats that are behind him. He's in a good spot today to get a couple hits and to have some guys drive him home. He has home run upside. He can steal a base for you. There's a lot of things he can do to stuff the stat sheet. And again, against De La Rosa, who's allowed a .310 batting average to lefties, I definitely think he's somebody else that you can put in play. Let's see. The next guy we can talk about is Tommy Milone for Minnesota going up against the Yankees. Malone's allowed right-handed bats to hit .285 against him with a 1.47 WOBA. So you can look at the two guys on the Yankees against left-handed pitching that we like to roll out there. A-Rod is a .383 WOBA with a .253 ISO number. So he's been showing really good power against the lefties this year. Definitely somebody that's in play today. The other guy is Chris Young. Chris Young has a .470 WOBA with a .315 ISO number. So both of these guys have numbers that are basically hopping off the page, not just for their position, but overall in general, numbers that hop off the page against left-handed pitching. So I think that both Chris Young and A-Rod are guys that you want to look at today. Neither one of them is too expensive. Both of them should be somewhere in the middle of that order for the Yankees. And I think they're going to give you a lot of upside on a day like today. Yovani Gallardo is going for Texas against the Angels. Right-handed bats have hit him better over the past year or two. They have a higher batting average. That means that you're going to have a guy like Mike Trout, .412 WOBA, .289 ISO is in play. And also a guy like Pujols, who actually hits right-handed pitching a lot better than he hits left-handed pitching. He's got a .392 WOBA with a .302 ISO number. So both of those guys make a lot of sense to use. Let's see. We got Ian Kennedy going up against Miami. Kennedy's been struggling with right-handed bats. .291 average, .148 whip, 10 home runs and 40 innings worth of work. The two left-handed bats that I really like the most on that Miami team are Derek Dietrich, .390 WOBA, .227 ISO score, and Justin Bour, .363 WOBA, .232 ISO score. I don't love either one of these guys, but I do like these two guys. They're cheap options that you can put in as salary savers, but they aren't guys that I would be going out of my way to build my lineups around. But if those guys happen to get into my lineups, I'm not going to be upset about it either. Let's see. We got Youngman from Milwaukee going up against Arizona. He's actually been pretty tough this year. Left-handed bats have hit him a little better, and they're only at a 239 average with a 1.38 whip. Goldie has a 430 WOBA and a 249 ISO number. Even though it's righty on righty, he's just been so good this year that you really can't argue against him. The other guy you can look at is David Peralta. Peralta has a 372 WOBA with a 242 ISO number. He was banged up. He got hit in the hand the other day, but he did play yesterday. It was right in the middle of that order. And, I think he's somebody who makes a lot of sense for you to use. Next guy you can talk about is Gio Gonzalez. Gio Gonzalez is a lefty. He's really struggled with right-handed bats this year. He's allowed a 288 batting average with a 1.57 whip. There's a lot of guys on this Pittsburgh team that have really good numbers against left-handers. So we're just going to go through them, but I think that Pittsburgh might be a team that you might want to stack up today. You got Francisco Cervelli as your catcher. He's got a 447 WOBA with a 233 ISO number. So that's huge for a catcher. Again, like I said, Gio's been really struggling with those right-handed bats. I definitely think Cervelli is somebody you want to look at today. You got Sterling Marte. He's got a 415 WOBA, 290 ISO score. So he's a guy that's been hitting the ball well against the lefty and also has some power. You can use a guy like Jung Ho Kang. He's been absolutely on fire over the course of the last month. I think he's hitting over 400 in the last month. Has a 374 WOBA with a 188 ISO score on the season. One thing he does very well is hit left-handed pitching. So if you got a guy like Kang up there towards the top of the top of the order, he's most likely to be hitting in the cleanup spot today. I definitely think he's somebody you could roll out there. And then the last guy that profiles well on that Pirates team is Andrew McCutchen. He's got a 373 WOBA with a 153 ISO score. He hasn't shown as much power this year against left-handed pitching as he normally does. But again, a 373 WOBA is a really high number, so it's definitely something that you can look at. Let's see. Now here, there's a couple other guys I want to mention. That pretty much goes through a lot of the guys who are considered the gas can pitchers on the mound. There's two guys, though, who I would target against that are up in the top part that I think a lot of people are going to shy away from. And the first one of those is Johnny Cueto. Now, Cueto's a very good pitcher, don't get me wrong. About 2 weeks ago on the 7th, he went out there and had a game where he scored 49 fantasy points. But in order for him to get those 49 fantasy points, he had to throw 122 pitches on that day. He really hasn't been right in the last two starts he's had since. He has 4.5 and 3 fantasy points in the two starts since his 49-point performance. Neither one of those starts has he pitched deep in the game. Neither one of those starts has he gotten a lot of strikeouts. And in neither one of those starts has he been particularly effective. So I think he's somebody that you might be able to use today. Not only do I think that you can use him today, but think about it. This is probably the worst spot he's going to be in all year. He's pitching in Colorado. He's coming off a couple bad starts. He doesn't look right. If you're ever going to pick on a guy like Cueto, today would be the day. The thing with Cueto is right-handed bats have actually been the ones that have been hitting him a little bit harder. They only have a 220 average with 7 homers in 60 innings. But against left-handed bats, he's kept them under 200 this year with less home runs. So like I said, the way to attack them is probably through the right-handers. The one guy who kind of stands out to me that I think I'm going to be using some today is Nolan Arenado. He already has 20 home runs against right-handed pitching. He has a 390 WOBA and a 329 ISO score. So you're not going to find too many guys with higher consistency or more power than you're going to find with Arenado. And I don't think anybody's going to be on him today because the casual player is going to look at Johnny Cueto pitching against him and skip over most of those Rockies. But remember, this is a game in Colorado. Cueto hasn't been pitching well. And did I mention this game is in Colorado? I mean, anytime there's a game in Colorado, it doesn't matter if it's Clayton Kershaw or the worst gas can at the end of the list. If you have a game in Colorado, you're going to see a lot of runs. Vegas is expecting a lot of runs today. And despite the fact that Cueto is a big-name pitcher, I do think he's somebody that you're going to be able to target against today, and I definitely would not be rolling him out there as one of my starting pitchers. The last guy I want to talk about in a similar spot is Shelby Miller. Shelby Miller has got knocked around a little bit by left-handed bats. They have about a 262 batting average against them, a home run every 11 innings, which isn't all that great, but it's not horrible either. The one left-handed bat I think you can use against him is Matt Carpenter. Carpenter's got a 374 WOBA with a 186 ISO score. And again, you guys know how much I love Carpenter, especially for cash games. The guy's just uber consistent. He gets a hit almost every game that he's in there. He picks up some walks. He can drive in some runs. He can score some runs. So he has a lot of ways that he can get you fantasy points. If I was going to look at anybody else on that St. Louis team, Randall Grichuk is absolutely on fire right now. 384 WOBA and a 301 ISO score. He's been hitting homers against lefties and righties. He's been doing it whether they put him on the top of the order or the bottom of the order. I'm hoping they keep him up in the top 5 again today. But even if he's not up in the top 5 again today, I just think that, you know, he's a guy that's been hitting it well and is in a pretty good spot. So you have to consider him as one of the, the options to roll out there. You know, Matt Holliday has a 370 WOBA, so he's also in a decent spot. And a guy like Johnny Peralta with a 360 WOBA, you know, for a shortstop, he's somebody else that I think you can consider on the day. As far as pitching goes, I really, really like Chris Sale today. I also absolutely love Hector Santiago. I don't understand why they don't jack this guy's price up a little more. He's basically been getting 20-plus points in every one of his last couple starts. Guy can get strikeouts. He can go deep into games. He's been an absolute stud. So I'm looking at Santiago and Sale on top of my rosters, then trying to round it out with a bunch of the guys we mentioned here. I think if you do that and you put that together, you're going to have a pretty good Saturday late slate for MLB DFS. So thank you for joining us. This has been Ben Ricciardi with rotocurve.com. And as always, stay classy, DFS.